Okay, I need to explain this. I know my AC's on in the background. I'm probably not going to turn it off because this is an hour and 30. But Fable's never heard of this story. I've heard bits and pieces. But I hope Den of the Drake actually likes us doing this for one time. I don't know, but he seems like a nice enough guy. So I'm going to say this. Go support him. He does a lot of good content. I've watched a few of his videos, and then I got directed to this one by some friends.
You don't have to watch it. It's so long.
We'll get through it, Fable, together, somehow.
Okay, I'll take a nap. Wake me up
Oh
in
my
like
God.
an hour and 30.
For those who don't know, Fable, you're a DM, correct?
Yeah.
What games specifically have you DM'd for?
I've DM'd for mostly I've DM'd mostly just D&D and stuff like that. D&D 5e to be more specific. I first started off trying to do a module. To those of you that know 5e, I tried to do a simple the very simple we call it Tales from the Yawning Portal, and then I decided to run my own game. It was fun. I had different players in the beginning. I had some good players and I've had bad players. I have my own nightmares. It's horrifying.
I was lucky enough to be
Radcourt is one
the...
of them.
Oh my
The mean
God.
player. The evil.
Radcourt likes to screw with
He
them and
is
make
great.
situations where Fable will just go, why?
Yeah, all my players do pretty much.
I was one of the good ones, though. I just made a crazy berserker robot.
Yeah. His
And-
robot was mean.
I was not mean, so I tried to punt the final boss. What do you expect me to do?
I still think that was funny because when you did, I'm like, so, he only goes so far. I swear I was scared someone when I said that. Yeah, because you got a pretty high strength check with that one, and I'm like, oh, so when you kick him, he only goes so far, and it feels like you're hitting something a lot larger than what he looks like.
Because,
That was so fun.
yeah, it was, because he was a cult leader and he was doing a thing of, you will know of the god's love, and then my character just starts screaming, rushing in. Yeah, we could turn this into a whole video about that, because where my character just goes screaming right in, love is not taken, it is given freely, and goes to try and put this. Basically, think of ancient Gargolem just running up, yelling that, and like trying to punt what is essentially the size of a normal robed human.
Yeah, that was fun.
We really need to make a video on that. I know a few editors that might be willing to help with that. But yeah. Tell me if you ever want to do it, Phil. I would be happy to talk about that one.
Sure, that'd be fun.
It was a joke. Meant to be taken as a joke. Yeah.
Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to the Den of the Drake. Other
Right.
dragons hoard gold, while I hoard internet cringe.
That's
For
kind of
reasons
sad.
that I'm sure you're smart enough to understand, humanity is not going to be around forever. But there's
Yeah.
one thing about the human spirit that never dies, and
What?
that is our myths and legends.
True.
Dragons still soar the skies of our imaginations, and Bigfoot
All
still
different
prowls
kinds.
the American Northwest. And the Loch
Bigfoot?
Ness Monster still wants his tree fitty. Most people can recall the 12 layers of Hercules, Achilles'
Was
one
not
weakness, the
expecting
sinking
that
of
joke,
Atlantis, and how
okay.
Robin
I
Hood and his
kind of love
merry
that.
men invented
Do you think we could add that for Platy? Oh yeah, and Robin Hood and the Merry Men. Do you think we could add that for Platy's lore that he stole from the Loch Ness Monster who wants his tree fitty back?
Yeah, let me ask him. Because I'm pretty sure he'll think it's funny, but yeah.
Yeah. That's why he can never go to Scotland again. Oh yeah. Anyway. Where are this?
communism. But surely the age of myths and legends has long passed, you might say. But I might counter with the internet is our own
No,
version
especially
of
not
the
from,
Library
especially
of
Heroes of
Alexandria.
Wars.
Except our version has TikTok and women getting rich selling pictures of their feet. I'll let you know which one I think should have burned down. But degeneracy aside,
I don't like TikTok
the
all that
internet has
much.
produced more than a handful of its own legends. Two of which we've actually seen featured on this channel. Those, of course, being that of Obongo the Kobold and Oogie the Honorary
I
Dwarf.
would be right.
But there's a
Okay.
third legend of 4chan,
I don't know
dear
about those
listener.
good stories.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know where we're going to find the Bongi the Kobold and whatnot. But yeah, one day I do want to do a thing with me and Fable where we just talk about funny stories. Because I have a few from Pathfinder, funny enough, everyone. I am not even kidding. Let's just say we had a DM who was trying really, really hard to check one of our players. But, I don't know how, but my friend, he was able to undercut it ever so. I don't know how he defeated the DM each time, but he did. And it was funny. Because, how should I put this? I was playing, I didn't know how to exactly do things for Pathfinder, so I was just playing character who was great at charisma, not much good at anything else. So, I mean, yeah. It's, I mean, I was a bard who only had a crossbow and a few spells that probably weren't that useful. And as a kitsune. Because, of course. Either way.
Yes, just like how humans
can't
study
believe
the
it.
pages of Homer's Odyssey today, long after we're all gone, our descendants will reflect upon the story of a hero that only goes by the name Old Man Henderson.
I really want
Today's
to be
video is
back.
going to be light on the commentary because I believe it's important for all of us to appreciate an RPG horror story of such a caliber that
I've
an entire
never heard
unit
this
of
one.
measurement called the
Oh.
Henderson scale was created to measure
What?
just how off the rails a story can go.
What?
Now, without any further delay,
The
let's go ahead
Henderson
and dive
scale?
right into the horrifying legend of Old Man Henderson. Enjoy.
What is this?
This
Old
week,
Man Henderson who Fable, are you looking at this?
You say,
Look what it says.
let's see who won Curse of Strahd.
Curse
They're
of
playing Curse
Strahd.
of
Cult of Cthulhu.
Okay, that was Curse of
big
Strahd. I'm
story
like,
comes
no.
from the anonymous 4chan user Waffle House Millionaire. It
Waffle
is
House
titled
Millionaire.
Old Man Henderson, the character who won Call of Cthulhu. Prologue. The origin of Old Man Henderson.
Okay, here we go.
I'd like to start by saying that the GM was a bastard that had it coming. Bullshit tactics to make everyone go crazy like a D6 with only 5 sides.
What?
No story, no reason. Lose 10 sanity.
Oh,
The others
I hate
continue
that.
to allow this foolery. We were playing in a modern day setting with the other players being a college
So here's the
professor
thing
who
about
found a
Curse,
couple of straight-
Call of Cthulhu. From what I understand, it is literally a game made where your characters are paper. If you make one, don't give them personality because they will fucking die.
I think you should give them personality because it makes it hurt a bit more, but I do think it depends on who is your DM on how bad things can get. Because
Yeah,
sure,
but
you can lose
seriously though,
sanity.
they will die. I know.
Yeah.
Unlike
Right,
D&D
so-
and other fantasy-based tabletop RPGs, your characters are human. They can and will die from gunshot wounds,
Yeah, funny
and
enough,
will go insane.
I did pretty good on the first time. I only played Call of Cthulhu once, but I did pretty good. You know what I did, Fable? I was playing a cop.
Oh no!
I immediately, when I saw the big monster chasing after some gangsters, I immediately rammed my car into him. Surprisingly enough, that worked.
I mean, that's how they killed Cthulhu, with a boat. But apparently, that's not it. And I'm like, listen, I don't care.
Oh my god.
Cthulhu owes me money. That loser can die for all I care.
Copy of the
Continue.
Necronomicon and wanted
Oh.
to find out just what the hell it was. A detective who was investigating a missing persons case connected to the local cult and a local athlete. I think it was football. Trying to find out why some of his friends seem so distant lately.
Oh.
And then there was Old Man Henderson, who was never given a first name.
Alright.
Old Man Henderson was already a little crazy and blamed his life's misfortunes on Vietnam. He never went to Vietnam. He was 12 in 74. And I will be fucking amazed if anyone gets that reference. not everyone does. It's the song My Brother-in-Law by Tim Wilson, as far as I can tell.
Oh.
Old Man Henderson wore combat boots, cargo shorts,
What?
and an open front Hawaiian shirt with a wife beater underneath. He was dyslexic and had a lesser case of schizophrenia, probably referring to schizotypal, allowing him to assume that the reason he saw crazy shit was because he was a little bit crazy.
Oh.
He had a Grizzly Adams beard and wore his hair in a mohawk. He
Oh
never
my
took off his
God.
aviator shades for any reason. He had a stuffed parrot on his shoulder named Rupert that he constantly asked for advice while ignoring the other party members as convenient, assuming that they were hallucinations.
Oh my
He had
God.
an automatic combat shotgun that he knew how to use. He also had memorized the Anarchist's cookbook.
Oh.
He started the game with a pre-existing hatred of religion, cutlery, and books.
What?
His motivation was that he thought that the cult had stole his lawn gnomes, but he had actually donated them to a charity auction, got high, and forgot about it. Most importantly, he had a 320-page backstory that
Oh.
justified everything. From his casual understanding of physics to his ability to speak Portuguese flawlessly.
What?
You can just imagine the sort of shenanigans that character was involved in. The point to having such a long backstory was threefold.
Oh my God.
1. To ensure the GM would never actually read it, and 2. Since he would never read it except for in excerpts I pointed out to justify things, I could rewrite and change things around completely at random without almost anyone noticing.
Oh my
And most
God.
importantly, 3. Convince everyone that I was serious about this character and that it simply wasn't the game-wrecking bullshit that it was. Dickish, yes, but he really did have it coming. First outing of the group, the detective was spying on a building of the cultist with a camera. The jock was parked nearby, waiting for the group to let out so he could snoop it out. The professor had joined the cult to try and gain information.
Alright.
Old Man Henderson very calmly parked his car, got out holding the shotgun in clear view of anyone who happened to be looking, in this case the detective and the jock, strolled up to the front door and kicked it in. While everyone just kinda stopped in shocked silence for a moment, he leveled his shotgun on the lead priest/cultist guy and yelled, "Knuckle dominant cult, where are your numblers keeping me wee men?"
What the hell, Fable?
Here's the thing, though. Tabletop games like this, if the DM refuses to work with the players will find a way to screw you over. Just
Yeah.
as the DM will find a way to screw over the players. And it's only really when you push the DM and the players to this point that they'll do something as stupid as this.
Yeah.
Did I mention that he had a nigh incomprehensible Scottish accent that came and went as he drank and or as amused me? The leader couldn't understand my simple request to return my lawn gnomes. Literally, you think what I typed is hard to understand? Imagine it being slurred at you by a drunken Scotsman. He assumed that I was trying to cast a spell at him in an elder tongue, and summoned a Shoggoth by murdering one of his fellows. One Molotov, and about 20 rounds later, the Shoggoth is dead. As is the cult leader, the professor.
my
He made
God.
the mistake of trying to make peacekeeper mid-murderous rampage.
Oh,
and
God.
about 10 assorted cultists.
Killed a
Old Man
Shoggoth?
Henderson then pissed on the Shoggoth's corpse, got back into his battered 92 Buick Century, and went home. The whole event was over in about 10 minutes.
10
game time, and
minutes?
Nobody thought to get the Buick's plates. The building burned down shortly, along with about half the written plot, and every lead either of the other surviving players had. The GM called a break then to figure out how to fix and or work around what I just did, and
my
it
God.
only got crazier from there. Some of his finer moments include dropping a yacht onto a penthouse suite owned by Cthulhu cultists,
How?
the stealing of said yacht from cultists of Hastur, thereby starting a cultist
King in
gang
Yellow.
war, the tanker truck incident, and my personal favorite, Hell on Ice. Part 1. Dropping the yacht.
Alright, here we go.
Old Man Henderson, while his erstwhile companion Jimmy, the jock, and his friend William Brocklaw, a once humble bartender, the now dead detectives player, Old Man Henderson burned down his bar on accident and blamed it on the cultists. One bluff check later, and he was in the posse. And Simon Breckenridge, the British spy. The Professor's player, now 6 characters in. And yes, they were more or less all killed by Old Man Henderson. Old Man Henderson had discovered that there was not one cult to the Elder Gods, but several. This complicated his search for his gnome/crusade. He had decided to enlist help in making the problem solve itself. Using his contacts, Simon discovered that an influential cultist of Hastur was coming to town to try and figure out how an avatar of his god was killed. He also located...
What'd you say, Fable? Fable? Oh, I think he's talking to someone. That made me laugh a little too hard. Oh, I need a second. This is wonderful. I love crazy shit like this. It makes me wish I had more moments like this. But unfortunately, I usually don't. Anyway, back into it. I'm going to be horrified and terrified.
The exact dock in which he would be landing his boat. Jimmy, meanwhile, discovered the home of the head of the local Cthulhu cults was a penthouse suite downtown. A plan was hatched. Old Man Henderson used all of his cunning to steal a military cargo helicopter. Reed Shoryuken the plot and flew off, and hid it in an abandoned warehouse.
Alright.
Jimmy and Will set up a very expensive surround sound speaker system at the docks, while Simon made and planted a lot of smoke bombs. That night, the yacht pulled in and we made our move. Right as Simon maneuvered the helicopter over the docks, we set off the smoke bombs and activated the speakers. On one side, a 50-piece marking band playing God Save the Queen at max volume.
Why?
On the other, the audio from the beach scene from Saving Private Ryan. Imagine for a moment what being on the dock would have been like. Utter fucking chaos.
Yeah.
I jumped down from the helicopter onto the boat and rigged it to lift out of there. During the course of which I ran into the cultist guy and ninja kicked him in the head, knocking him tail over tea kettle and off the boat. I later learned that he broke his neck in the fall. Damned convenient, otherwise he might have been able to ID me. We then
Mac.
lifted the boat out of there, switched...
You wanna hear a really stupid D&D story I just remembered?
Sure.
Alright, I'll make it quick. So, Red Croy, he played a character in the first game. He basically wanted to make a road without a sad backstory, because everyone knows roads have sad backstories. It's a trope, right? Anyway, one time they were fighting. I had them in the woods investigating something, and they came across these creatures known as the Lost. I think that was the one they had them fight. Basically, they were the embodiments of certain emotions, such as sorrow, pain, anger, things like that. I was having them fight the sorrow. There it is. I was having them fight a certain amount of them. Kars's character got knocked out and was about to be dragged away when they were hiding, like when Vtubers was hiding behind a dome. And I basically said that they can sense your emotions, specifically sadness. Vtubers then proceeded to say some of the saddest parts of his backstory, and after that, he's less like, guys, I think I made a road with a tragic backstory.
Oh my god.
Like, the realization was so funny. It was so stupid. I love that moment. Because he's just like, he kept telling me things like, Fable, I'm gonna try to, I made a joke in a bet saying I would make a road without a sad backstory. Count it to about like a year or something as we're playing, to him coming to the realization that he in fact made a road with a very depressing backstory.
Oh god.
It was so funny. I was just like, I mean, yes, you did. I didn't want to bring it up, but I'm glad you finally realized it. It was funny.
Our secondary audio on all sides, My Heart Will Go On by Henderson. I was in a vengeful mood, the gnome-stealing bastards. So when the cultists finally got the smoke to clear, their yacht was gone, their leader was dead, and Celine Dion was stuck in their heads. Not the best of days. Then we went across town in a stolen military cargo chopper carrying a 40-foot yacht and parked the helicopter above the penthouse. With the yacht about 80 feet above it, we then cut the line, jumped out with our parachutes, and watched the yacht ruin a dinner party while placing bets on whether the military would save the chopper, blow it up, or if it would just hover there until it ran out of fuel.
Possibly.
Part 2. The tanker truck incident.
Okay. Before we go on, I want to say, yeah, you and Raikkonen and Kark should honestly just get together and talk about, like, make videos about your own D&D experiences, because what the hell. I don't think I've been playing the game long enough to have such experiences, but, you know.
I have a dumb story about me destroying Karsh's endgame boss plans. It was hilarious.
I have one story, but we'll talk about it later.
Time for what will forever be known as the tanker truck incident. Notice that "the" is capitalized. This is because no matter what incidents in the future may involve tanker trucks, this is the definitive one.
Okay.
It started out innocently enough. Old Man Henderson left the stakeout in a van outside the evil cult's meeting place to go get some hooch. The only people left were the detective and James Fink, the professor's second character. Jimmy was gone because it was a school night.
Oh.
Old Man Henderson was a bad influence, but damned if he didn't have the kid's best interests at heart. The cultists seen me leaving. I had a very distinct appearance after all, very useful in scoring TPKs, and discover my friend spying on them. The detective gets a pretty GAR death, and James dies like a bitch, but not yet. I'm on my way back, walking along. The detective and James had been brought inside as a part of a ritual to give Haster an avatar in our world. He had been banished, and the only way he could come here was via a loophole. He could only use as hosts people who knew that he existed and who had thwarted him 3 times. And then he had to make them drink the lifeblood of their closest friends to make the binding permanent. In this case, you're wondering, permanent binding equals game over. The first part of the ritual was completed, but before Haster could take control, the detective broke James's shackles and he tried to run. He made it as far as the street when the detective, now Haster, caught up with him, part demon form. Now, where this church, for a lack of a better term, was located, was at the end of the road on a T-shaped intersection. There was a gas station about 3 blocks away, which is where Old Man Henderson was while this was going down. Old Man Henderson sees shit hit the fan and steals a half-tanker truck that was refilling the station's holding tank. While I bring the truck up to ramming speed, I toss a 12-pound block of C4 in the passenger seat.
Where did you get
rig the detonator to the airbags. Old Man Henderson then took a bracing shot of whiskey, jammed a knife through the gas pedal, then jumped out of the truck onto his Heelys. Yes, he modified his combat boots to have Heelys. I swear to God,
how else is he gonna
for this to
his
happen.
Heelys?
The Heelys just sounded like something f***ing ridiculous and in character. He watched the truck ram the detective into the church, then blow him and all the cultists to Kingdom Come. The truck also killed James by running him over. And that's when the back trail ignited.
Alright then.
Fire going all the way to the gas station and destroying it. Continuing my streak of accidentally destroying anything that might lead people back to Old Man Henderson. I took a moment to call Jimmy. Oi, Henderson here. I figured out what the nasties are weak against. What's that, Mr. Henderson? Point blank annihilation. Click. Part 3. Hell on Ice.
Alright.
We were in the end game. With zombies and Shogoths chasing us, I had managed to get Jimmy disappeared. So it was Old Man Henderson, Simon, and Will going to the final strong point we had at an abandoned hockey stadium. On the way there, we had rammed through a small home and garden store in our truck. When we arrived, we started barring the doors and windows when I noticed something. Our trip through the store had netted us a passenger. A single lawn gnome. Somehow, I knew right then that this was it. No lucky turn of fate. No Deus Ex Machina. Old Man Henderson was going to die. But I'd be damned if it wouldn't be the best f***ing last stand ever. I then revealed to the GM that Henderson was a world champion figure skater, hockey player, and golfer. The backstory of Doom got one final use. We had got almost all the doors barricaded, but the zombie/Shoggoth army kicked in the last door and got Simon. Will was pulled off the Zamboni after he managed to throw the crate onto the ice. The crate's full of exploding hockey pucks. He lasted a couple of minutes while blasting Bust a Move, Young MC, before the situation resolved into totally f***ed. I switched to the next track as I yelled, "Hostad, Hostad, Hostad!" The next track came on. It was the Canadian national anthem, which Old Man Henderson began to sing proudly at the top of his lungs. I then threw out the three pieces of knowledge that marked Old Man Henderson's blaze of glory. 1. Calling Haster's name 3 times will summon him, but only if it's called by his truest foe. Yes,
Oh, God.
when an elder god is summoned from beyond, they suffer from a sort of summoning sickness. They're still unbelievably strong, but they can be killed forever if you hit them hard enough. 3.
If you hit them
The
hard
building
enough.
had enough explosives wired to make Michael Bay blush.
Oh, god
And that,
damn.
my friends, is the tale of how Old Man Henderson won Call of Cthulhu.
I see how it goes.
Okay, so it's at
So he set off so many bombs to kill Haster, the King in Yellow.
Jesus Christ, Old Man Henderson.
Good lord, man.
this point in the story where we enter into what's called the director's cut.
Alright.
Here's where our narrator splits into 2 people. Pay attention because this shit's gonna be on the test. At this point, Waffle House Millionaire is now joined by his friend, a self-called Nowhere, who provides a sort of outside perspective on the story. I'll be sure to clarify who's narrating each part, but just keep that in mind as we move forward.
Alright.
Now, I've covered plenty of sagas in the past, but it should speak volumes that this story is the first ever to have volumes.
Yeah.
Director's Cut, Part 1. For those of you curious as to whether or not Old Man Henderson was real, yes, it was. I was there. I was the professor and like 15 other fucking people. Because Henderson had no concept of collateral damage or inside voice.
Dear
The
God.
whole and complete
And like
story
I
was
said,
fucking
your
crazy.
characters are made out of paper. They will die.
I mean, normal humans are squishy, so yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. When you go into a Call of Cthulhu game, like you said, yeah, give them a personality, give them something, but don't get too attached to them, because that's the thing about the game. They sadly will pass away, whether you like it or not. That's just sadly how the way the game works.
Yeah. Not that I like it much, though.
But still, though, if it's their kind of thing, go for it. Have fun, go crazy, be stupid. It's a game. The whole point of it is to have fun.
Yeah. That's why I like...
Don't let anyone stop you from having fun in the tabletop. But yeah,
It's why I really want to play Kesor again.
yeah.
I don't care where, but he needs to be in battle. Anyway.
Because crazy was happening in and out of game, and he only gave you guys a highlights reel. I might end up story timing the whole thing, even though I'm not as eloquent as him. Seriously, I read the backstory of Doom. What he told you does not do it justice. Waffle House Millionaire tends to get emotionally attached to a well-made character.
Ah,
To him,
that's
they're
why.
the means of exploring a story, and a good story is
That's
something that he
understandable.
thinks is the very foundations of modern society.
True.
He doesn't mind a bad end so long as it's legitimate. Botched
Understandable.
a roll at the bad time? Shit happens. Bad choice in character? Meant to be. Simply screwed by circumstance? Them's the shakes. Lol, you're dead because you actually disagreed with my self-insert fetish-fueled character with 2 katanas?
Oh.
I actually had to stop him from choking the fat bastard. Which might make him sound like a bad person, ruled by petty emotion. But the truth is, he's like a bear. Normally quite chill, not that easy to piss off. So he doesn't move often, but when he does, things like Henderson happen. It was the 5th session of the game with an experienced GM using Trail of Cthulhu. A small distinction on the whole, but one worth mentioning in my eyes. And he'd already lost 3 characters to the stupidest shit.
See, I can understand if you make a few bad rolls and bad things happen. Like, I will be sad over losing my character, but you can't really do anything. But losing it over really stupid stuff can get someone angry. And I can understand that. Right, Fable? Fable? Oh, Fable's dead again. Looks like I'm taking control of his streams now. Anyway.
Seriously, the last one, some evil force put a curse on him and he ended up being killed by a horse, falling out of an airplane.
What?
So the GM goes to grab the pizza since it was his turn to pay, and I could feel the room cooling slightly. Waffle House Millionaire's expression never changed. He never looked at me or the other two guys.
Fable? Fable? Oh, he's probably talking to someone. But yeah. He's probably always, Fable's always listening in no matter what, so yeah. Anyway.
I know you're thinking about leaving, but I want you to stay. I want you to watch what I'm going to do.
Oh.
I knew that this was bad, because while he can get frustrated mad, which is hilarious by the way, he makes this choking noise in the back of his throat like a murloc caught in a trash compactor. When he gets truly pissed, he gets calm.
Oh,
We
he's
continue
one of
for the
those.
evening, and about a week later we come back. He's giving me a ride, and he looks like he hasn't slept in 2 days. And the stubble is almost, not quite, into gangly half-beard territory.
Ooh.
I've done something. I'm not sure it's a good thing yet. He says as he hands me the little binder thing he keeps his character sheets and notes in. You've done something? I ask as I take the folder from him.
Oh my god.
I created? No. Created is the wrong term. I feel like it was already there, waiting for me to give it life. I put a thing on paper, and I'm bringing it down on that fat f*** like the wrath of God.
Him saying this feels like he's actually a character from Call of Cthulhu who has just accidentally tapped into, well, the great beyond and summoned forth the old ones. Or the outer gods. Or any of them, really. Anyway. More into this. What did he... Like, his backstory was that long.
I say as I look at the sheet. Is Henderson his first or his last name? I don't even know. So then I look at the stack of paper that he called a backstory, and I start reading it. And I'm immediately fascinated by what can only be called a tome of madness.
Oh.
It switched perspectives and tone wildly. At one point, it was written with stage directions in the form of a
What?
script. And at one point, it went into German.
What?
I know for a fact that he only knows like 2 words in German while I'm kind of fluent. The German was in his hand, and it was grammatically flawless.
How?
I find my voice. What? Been asking that myself all f***ing day.
Good lord, man.
So we get into the game, and the GM asks what we're all doing. Detective guy's drinking alone at his desk, waiting for one of his contacts to get back to him. Jimmy, the jock type, is struggling with math homework.
Alright.
My character, Professor Filkins, is grading
Filkins.
midterms. Then we get to the introduction of Henderson. He's sitting in a lawn chair in his house, smoking a bong, staring at a wall he painted to look like a Hawaiian beach.
What?
No, Rupert. He addresses the stuffed parrot currently resting on the arm of his chair. You're a good friend. Most people would have asked for a hit, but you know how much I love this shit. Way better than what we had back in Nam. He chuckles and then begins reminiscing. You know, I still remember the first time I got high. Back in me older brother's van. No, it must have been some good shit too, because I'm an only child, ain't that right, Charles? He looks over to an empty corner of the room. Charlie? He then gets up, mildly concerned. Man, what the hell? He begins to search the house in earnest, before sitting down on a chair in his kitchen. Where the f*** are my lawn gnomes? I mean, did somebody steal them? Who the f*** would steal them? Yeah, they're worth a lot, but come on.
Are they?
He then pulls out a Sharpie and begins to scribble on the table. Alright, 215 gnomes.
You have
total
that
weight
many?
of 800 pounds. Total value approaching 40,000.
What?
Not a one-man job. Need help to carry them. Need help to sell them. I'm looking at a large and well-organized group of assholes. He looks into the middle distance. Like those guys down the street? They're Mormons, right? Large religious group. Come around in the early morning like these damn Charlies. Groups, I think we've got a lead. And then he poured a couple of Jack Daniels into a large to-go cup and went and got in his car. Before I get back to the rest of the party, it should be noted that Henderson looks a lot like Jeff Bridges of today. So imagine all of his lines in that voice, because that's the voice we retreated to at the table. Anyway, I've had a lead on the cult meeting for a while, and I managed to get an invite. I'm sitting in the front row, listening to a passionate Arab man talking about how there's more to the world than we know. Despite myself, I'm intrigued. Jimmy is sitting outside, thinking about his friends and trying to decide if he should go in to talk with them or what. The detective's gotten his call back and is now watching the scene with interest. A battered 92 Buick Century fails to get their attention until it suddenly executes a perfect handbrake turn and parks at the curb. Back to the Henderson's point of view. He's blasting Creedence Clearwater Revival when he suddenly sniffs the air and says, Mormons, before whipping around and parking out front and killing the car. He then gets out of the car and pops the trunk in full view of the detective. He then shoves Lurid Lucy, an inflatable sex toy of exceptional quality, to one side, and pulls out some sort of Israeli-made combat shotgun and starts walking towards the house. He then kicks open the door while our mouths are agape.
What?
You're the one that wanted to watch this.
Have you been listening the whole time?
Yeah. Someone was talking to me, and then I had to quickly run to the bathroom. I couldn't really say anything, sadly.
Okay, well, did you hear the part about him having the, like, 300-page thing?
Yes,
Yeah,
and the fact that even he doesn't know where it came from. It was just there. It was there all along. Yes.
Imagine that for
it's
a
the
character.
Mormons, man. It's the Mormons.
I don't think it is.
I don't know. Old man Henderson is on to something.
Anyway, I don't think he is.
Words that let us know that the game would never be the same. Knuckle damn got this area nobody's keeping me women. So at this point, the GM has not yet realized what Henderson is.
What?
In fact, I think I'm the only one who truly understood what was about to happen to existential horror at this point in time. Here's another fun fact about Waffle House Millionaire. When he's at the game table with a character sheet, you aren't at the table with him. You're at the table with whatever character he's playing until further notice. I don't think he could have metagamed if he tried. So anyway, the GM has decided to regain control the only way he knows how. By killing Mike's latest character via bullshit. So he summons a Shogun. Henderson, having passed the will check to not puke up his brains and winning the initiative, comments on how it's the ugliest f***ing poodle ever, oh god, and then shoots it in the f***ing face until it dies. Then he shoots the cultist guy who summoned it, and then he shoots me, and then the guy, and then he pisses on the Shoggoth's corpse, since everyone else is too busy losing their shit in a panic over the creature that should not be being summoned, and casually sets the tapestry on fire with his cigar as he walks out the door. So then everyone still alive runs the f*** away from the burning building before the cops show up. Henderson makes it home about 3 blocks away and then realizes something horrible.
What?
He totally fucking forgot about the lawn gnome. He runs back to the still burning building only to see the fire department has already arrived. They inform him that no gnomes were in the building that they could tell. On one hand, he's relieved since he didn't lose the gnomes, and killing that many little people would probably constitute a hate crime. Never mind that he's totally just leveled a church with the speed and brutality of the fucking Spetsnaz. Anyway, he goes to try and cook up where they could have gone at the local pub. The GM at this point looks up at us from his notes. He's clearly been thrown so far off the fucking tracks by what just happened that he can't just improv his way out of it. I think I need a minute. Or 10. He amscrays, and I look over to the man I thought I knew. He has his cell phone out and is asking us if we were cool with Chinese food since we had pizza last week. What the f*** was that? Asks one of our fellow players. Remember when I said I was getting revenge? I brought out the big guns. I don't even have small guns anymore. I was given some once and promptly returned them. Won't be needing these, I said. Hello? Chinese food place I forgot the name of. You still got that special on shrimp fried rice? Director's
You're telling me a shrimp can fry rice?
Oh my god. Fable, have you ever had that thing where something's happened in your game you expected so far out where you get destroyed and then you go, I need a minute? As a DM?
I do, actually. You want to hear it?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so I have two of those, but one was more of a Looney Tunes thing. I'll explain real quick. So I originally, since I was still really new to being a DM, I really tried hard to try to make a memorable bad guy. My first ever real bad guy, his name was Draven. He had a book that would let him peer into the minds of everyone and see what they were most envious of, because that's kind of like a very basic emotion a lot of people deal with.
Yeah.
And basically, I had it so that the players would have to make me a wisdom save. Some of them failed, and I'm like, okay, so the bad guy, see a white room where you see everything you envy, out of others. Basically, Pippers, being the chaotic butthole he is, Looney Tunes me because he started talking to the bad guy like he was an old friend, and basically said, "So, what are you most envious of?" And he basically had the bad guy on like one of those stupid like
therapist
therapy
chairs? Yeah.
therapist chair, and I'm like, I need a minute. I'm still learning the game, but I'm like, I'm very good when it comes to rolling with the punches. I feel like I got better with it over time. You can ask right, but in the beginning, I was very like, what is going on? like literally, he Looney Tunes the crap out of the guy, and I'm like, I need a minute to recover because I was laughing too much from that.
Good lord.
That was so stupid. And then the second time was later in the thing where we kind of had established a lot of the characters' personalities and lights and insanity.
Yeah.
And I basically had the party. I told the story before, but I had it set that the party was dealing with a hag that had captured these two people. The plan was for the group to sneak in, remove the two prisoners that the hag had.
All right.
Basically, they remove the two prisoners. The barbarian and the cleric flew up into the air, and the barbarian said, "As soon as we get high enough, I want you to release me." And I'm like, "What are you guys doing?"
Yeah. What?
So basically, I had forgotten that I had given them a broken wand of fireballs. Basically, it means that when you get a broken magic item, it just means that depending on the charges, it won't recharge the next day. It's a one and done kind of thing, right?
Okay.
So basically, I had given it to the barbarian. I given it to them, and the barbarian's just like, I have a plan. So the barbarian explained to the cleric, I want you to take me about 100 or 20 or 200 feet in the air, and you're gonna drop me. And the barbarian tells me, DM, as soon as I hit the building, I'm gonna use all the charges of the fireball. And I'm like, you're gonna what?
What?
Yes, and the barbarian's just like, don't worry, I have rage, so I'm gonna be immune to much of the damage. I'm like, that's not the problem. You're gonna what? Yeah, no, because I know how my players are. I know they're okay with being hurt, and I know they can revive each other. But I'm just like, you're gonna what? As soon as the barbarian lands in the building, she uses all three charges of the wand of fireballs. Explodes the building, instantly kills the hag, jumps up and says, "It's a boy," and I'm like, I need a minute. I'm like, I need a minute. I can't believe you just made that reference. Why are you like this?
Lord.
I'm like, oh my god. It's so stupid. I just remembered one more. It's even stupider. Um, basically, I was having the players, the barbarian. It had to do with the barbarian because freaking the player was insane. The barbarian basically, I had them fighting an undead T-Rex that would spew zombies. Right? It was kind of like a really gross thing, but kind of cool. I thought it was really cool. I had it so that at one point the undead T-Rex had released some zombies from its mouth. The barbarian said, "DM, can I grab one of the zombies and throw it back to the throw it back into the mouth of the T-Rex?" And I'm like, "Why are you like this?" And I'm like, "Give me a minute to calculate and make this make sense." I allowed it to happen mostly because of the rule of cool and because zombies don't weigh a lot. Barbarian had like an 18 strength, so I'm like, okay, it makes sense. And I'm like, okay, just roll me a strength check. She did. She rolled a natural 20.
Oh god.
I want you to imagine a halfling barbarian, by the way.
Oh.
So like a little pint-sized strong lady basically rolled a natural 20. And I'm like, okay, so you all watch as Webby grabs a zombie, spins it around, and throws it back into the mouth of the T-Rex that it came from. Why are you like this? The amount of times I have asked my players why are they like this is ridiculous. It's
In
just...
the last story, we had a dead show
they
down
love
the
them.
party building,
Jesus
a bunch
Christ,
of MIA
man, they're
long gnomes,
evil.
and we totally just
Yeah.
ordered some bitchin' Chinese food. Anyway, at this point in the proceedings, Henderson decided that if he couldn't get a proper brainstorming going at home as to the location of the gnomes, then he could always try Harry's bar.
We'll probably stop
Good
this
old Harry
around
was
40
scared
minutes
proper
and see if you
shitless
guys
of
want more.
Henderson after an incident with a commie
That's so
bastard
funny.
pinball machine prior to the game's start. So he could drink in peace and nobody really bothered him about the mounting tab. So he's sitting there working on a new plan of action with his two best friends, Mr. Daniels and Mr. Walker, when suddenly a news report comes on. Apparently some woman was commenting on how the quiet religious group a few blocks away from the bar had just had their shit wrecked. Henderson was very interested in knowing that they were not in fact Mormons, but rather disciples of the Yellow King, which apparently were a radical sect of Buddhism that had the details promptly ignored since there was a hockey game. Then Henderson had a really good idea, since somebody at the other table had the Dragnet theme as their ringtone. He knew f*** all about looking for people, but a private detective? So after a few minutes in the phone book, he decides to literally call the first name he saw under the PI heading. By sheer freakish coincidence, the phone in the detective player's office starts to ring. Hello? I need a man who's good at finding things, doesn't have any great love for religious loonies, and doesn't mind maybe shooting an ugly-ass poodle or two. I'm sorry, but who is this? The name's Henderson, and I'll need some help from a professional. No argument here. So, you're looking to hire a PI, correct? Yup, I had something precious stolen from me. And that was roughly $40,000 of lawn gnomes. There was silence both in-game and at the table. I'm sorry, what? I'm not saying it was cultists, but I'm pretty sure it was cultists or aliens. But it seems unlikely given the circumstances. So if you're interested, we can talk down at Harry's on the south side by the river. And he then hung up. Since the detective was quickly getting nowhere with his missing persons case, he decided it would be good for a laugh. Henderson, meanwhile, had discovered that Harry had acquired a Pac-Man arcade machine and decided to fill the scoreboard with profanity. So
Of
when
course.
the detective arrives, he asks for some guy named Henderson and was promptly pointed to a man in unusual attire who was teaching a girl how to shoot pool. Henderson, will you hold on just a second? The important part of a shot in pool is to make sure it's smooth. Take all the time you need to line up the shot, don't let them rush you. He says as he then sinks his last 3 balls and the 8 in one stroke. He then turns to the detective, who promptly recognizes him and tries to leave. Too bad for him, Henderson decided to follow. So, how do you think you're gonna go about this? I'm gonna get the hell back in my car and leave you this crazy-ass arsonist/murderer behind. No shit. He looks over his shoulder back at the bar. Which one? He looks at the detective, poking him in the chest. What? The church? You burned down a church? They started it. Because you walked in with a shotgun.
They started it.
Exasperated at
That's
the
something you would say.
infuriatingly flawless logic of
I
a
mean, they
complete
did.
asshole. No, because they stole my goddamn lawn gnomes. Yeah, you mentioned that. How do you fucking steal $40,000 in decorative lawn fixtures? Where the hell did you even get that many gnomes? I worked briefly as a prostitute in Thailand. The
What?
antique gnome collection was my retirement plan. What? Ended up riding some dude's junk all the way back home. Hell of an uncomfortable ride, let me tell you. Not meant for the ocean blue,
Jesus
and I would know.
Right,
You
Henderson.
understand the logistics of riding another man's junk across the ocean? Well, in a general sense, I took a course on shipbuilding back in college. This was before we had these fancy gypsy Pathfinder space ferries.
He's so
Alright, you
confused.
said you were looking for gnomes. Actually, that was earlier. I just
my
now was
God.
explaining
He's making
that
a
I knew
reference
so
to a
much
D&D,
about catching a ride on
to
somebody's
another
junk
tabletop
because of vigorous
RPG. Are you
studying
kidding
me.
me?
Oh, he was?
Yeah, Pathfinder is another time to D&D. In the space parodies, apparently I think that might have been a reference to Spelljammers.
Oh.
I hate it.
Let's focus on the gnomes. You think they were stolen by a cult? Only thing that makes sense from what I know of. I want you to look into this Disciples of the Yellow King. See if they're doing anything suspicious. Actually, I was just looking into them already for
Suspicious.
another reason.
Yeah.
Looks like they've got a hand in human trafficking. Lawn gnomes seems like an odd direction to go in, but I won't deny it if they're up to no good. I'll let you know if I find anything worth talking about. Sounds good. I'm usually at Harry's, unless I'm not. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go see a man about a horse. Henderson then walked across the street, stole a bicycle, and rode off into a plot hole for a brief period of time. Now, here's the question. Do you guys give a shit about non-WHM related things?
Mac, real quick.
What?
Platty said he's more than happy to have his backstory about the fact that that he stole money from the Loch Ness Monster and he wants his 350 back.
Oh, God.
Yeah, he literally said, Lamau, yes. That is his actual reply, so we can literally say that he stole 350 from the Loch Ness Monster.
Fun.
Oh, I love Platty.
Because the rest of us were trying to play a somewhat serious
Bless his
game
heart.
around it, and I wanted to know if you guys wanted the whole story or just shenanigans. Several votes for the whole story later. Alright, so at this point, the guy playing the detective decided to give my character an easy in with the group, since poor Jimmy was still on his lonesome for the moment. In roles, James Fink, one of several characters whom Henderson killed, and the only one besides Simon whose name ever got remembered by the rest of the group. James is a longtime friend of the detective, whose name I just remembered was Albert Johansson, pronounced Johansson for some fucking reason.
Oh.
Back when Al was still a cop, Jim was a thug for the local mob. They
Alright,
worked up the
then.
ladders of their respective organizations, gained the respect of their coworkers, and eventually ended up leaving their jobs on good terms with their bosses. In
Alright.
Jim's case, it was because his wife had a baby on the way back then, and asked him to find safer work. Al ended up in a shootout where his partner got killed fighting against a bunch of crazy meth addicts.
Alright then.
Shortly after quitting, they ran into each other by coincidence and discovered that the other one was the bastard who kept wrecking our job / getting away, and ended up becoming fast friends.
Nice.
This continued on a fairly regular basis for several years until the Henderson situation. And Al decided that he wanted backup, and there was nobody in the world that he trusted more. So, Jim said as he walked into the office, who's the client? Some crazy motherfucker named Henderson. So, that his first or his last name? Man, I got no fucking clue. Alright, so what's he want? Apparently, he thinks a cult stole his unique lawn gnome collection. So, drop the nutter. I got 2 good reasons not to. The cult he's accusing I honestly believe to be involved in both activity illegal and bizarre. The other is that any man who could afford to have 40 grand in gnomes lie around can write a paycheck.
Oh.
Why the hell would somebody have 40? Don't tug on this particular string, Jim. Trust me, just don't. So, what's our first lead? Well, I was gonna go kick around the ashes of the church my new boss just burned down and see if there were any witnesses.
My
Wait,
new boss
our
just
boss
burned
caused
down.
that church fire?
Yep. So you're in?
Oh my god.
You kidding? I need to see how deep this rabbit hole goes.
That evening they went to the site and discovered the Shoggoth's corpse. There wasn't enough of it left to force sanity checks, but plenty to make them start asking some pointed questions.
Yeah.
The professor ended up on the list of people to look into when this body was identified. And then they found the missing page of the Necronomicon. Recognizing the occult symbols on it, the detective dropped it off at his office while he went to ask if he could borrow a notebook out of the cold case evidence lockers. Henderson, meanwhile, discovered that during a recent bender, he had agreed to chaperone a dance at the local high school.
Wait, what?
So he swings by the detective's office to let him know where he'll be. So he's at the office and meets Jim, asks him to pass along the info to Al, and then snags the scrap of the Necronomicon on the way out of the door, saying he needed paper. Jim failed his spot check to notice which sheet he actually took. The GM fudged it, probably assuming Henderson was going to read it and he can kill him off via sanity damage.
What?
Boy howdy, was he wrong.
What'd he do?
So Henderson shows up to the dance in his usual attire, slightly less scruffy than usual, and volunteers to sit outside to make sure punks from the other schools didn't try and gate crash the party. The more proper people were glad to keep him out, since that meant he wouldn't be able to corrupt the youth.
Well-
Henderson was glad because there was no way they'd let him smoke the monster blunt that he just rolled.
Wait, what?
I then realized, as he lit an atomica, as he called it, a blunt roughly the size of a Cuban cigar, that there was currently only one piece of paper on his person.
No.
As soon as I found out where he was in character, I went to the school to try and prevent the inevitable.
No.
Meanwhile, Jimmy, the jock, was sitting outside, sad
He's
because
gonna-
his girlfriend didn't
he's
come
gonna
because she
smoke
was too
the-
busy being a crazy cultist. Henderson decides to introduce him to the wonderful world of substance abuse. And
Oh
like a
my
bro,
God.
passes the
Listen.
blunt. To be totally honest,
He's
I
gonna
was
smoke a piece of a Necronomicon.
Not gonna lie, that's a
Realized
very
that this
smaller
moment-
move, to be honest.
Oh my god.
and didn't make the original story, since smoking the giant book of bad juju was the best thing to ever happen on accident.
What?
So Jimmy took a hit and totally failed every check that the GM sent his way. The man saw Jesus, and then Jesus turned into a giant squid thing. In the deep distance, the weed softened the blow by masking everything behind a cartoony afterglow.
Oh.
So imagine for a moment watching Elmer Fudd scream Cthulhu Flatagan and shoot Daffy in the face. Only instead of a f***ed up beak and a muttering of "Fifth means war," he screams, "He comes!" And tentacles rip out of his form to molest wildlife.
What?
This is the part where I had to go to the door to retrieve the
That
precious shrimp
that word
fried
used
rice.
to mean to
But I came-
bother.
Oh.
That word literally means to bother something or someone. However, it has a double meaning, but most people use the other meaning lately. But it used to stand for when something bothers you or bothers animal life. Yeah. If
Oh.
you guys don't believe me,
Back
look it up
to-
on the dictionary.
Oh.
So, wait,
Yeah.
I only lost 15 sanity? Yeah, what now? Well, I pass it back.
What?
Henderson, of course, manages to ace the tests, and then comments on how, "This is some really good shit, man," and how Jimmy is a lightweight. Jimmy then does a bit better, and they get to swapping stories. Pretty soon, the cult comes up, and they agree to join forces for the sake of cute girls next door and lawn gnomes everywhere.
Oh,
Sadly,
my God.
that roach burned fast and hard, so when me and Al got there, all we saw was the crazy old f*** and some ginger teenager crashed together against the wall giggling at those silly squid things in people's heads. So we then discover the kid's connection to the madness and promptly discover what he knows. This leads to the three people who didn't have school tomorrow, both in and out of game, to prepare a stakeout at some church. So at this point, we all get into Jim's van and park down the street from the church. The church happens to be on the end of a road at a T-shaped intersection, and we're parked a bit up the way from it.
Alright.
Man, stakeouts are boring.
No shit, Henderson. You have anything useful to contribute?
Not really. I should have brought a book or something.
Would you be paying attention to the building if you had reading material?
Not really.
So then I guess that would defeat the purpose of a stakeout, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, if you two were watching, hell, we could have two of us watching the third man playing bait.
You'd volunteer for that.
Beats the fuck out of sitting in a
He's
van
gonna
with
play
two
bait?
dudes who won't even let me smoke. Didn't you smoke evidence last time you lit up? I regret nothing. F it, you guys hungry or something? I'm gonna go grab some munchies from the gas station.
Bring some coffee.
Ain't some cheese
And
doodle.
this is where he killed
Hey,
James
what's in
and the
there?
detective.
F it, just leave the doors unlocked.
He then went in search of snacks. When he hopped out of the van, one of the cultists happened to see him on a lucky roll. And as he walked out of the corner into the gas station, they ran out and beat the shit out of the two of us left behind.
Oh my god.
About the time we got dragged into the building, Henderson had finally got out of the bathroom. About the time we got tied to the altar, Henderson had stopped to try on some hats.
Oh.
About the time the ritual reached its height, Henderson was debating which AC/DC album was the best with the cashier. The end result of that argument was that while they couldn't decide if Back in Black or Dirty Deeds was the best album, Black Ice was pretty boss and heralded only
God.
good. So then, with some tense tests of willpower and resolve, Al managed to free Jim and hold off the cultists while an evil presence steadily took chunks off of his sanity score, until he was no longer able to resist. Smiling in malicious glee, Haster began to stalk his new prey. At this point in time, Henderson had just walked out of the store, just in time to see my character get murder-glomped by a monster wearing my friend's face.
Oh.
So he only does the logical thing that he could. He stole a f***ing fuel truck. So then
Yeah.
we find out that he was packing C4 and was making all sorts of tests while gunning it down the road towards us. He made it back and bailed, just in time for the truck to hit him off me and run my ass over. Haster rode that truck to its end while Henderson placed a call to Jimmy.
Hey kid, Henderson here. Found out what the nasties are weak against.
Oh yeah.
What's that, Mr. Henderson?
Point blank annihilation.
He then hangs up the phone and proceeds to walk off. I finished bleeding to death 2 turns later. That's right, the motherfucker left me to die. Sure, it wasn't like I was screaming for help, but he could have at least checked. Since I'm not sure how familiar TG is with certain Cthulhu-based rulebooks, I was basically in what D&D calls
Yeah.
alive, but with negative hit points. So, helpless, dying, but there's still hope. Until the
Oh my
back trail
God.
ignited and the tiny amount of fire damage ended me. My one consolation was that the fire blew up the gas station and took the bar he left me for with it.
Oh my
Then
god.
the detectives player, after the fastest reroll I have ever seen, entered stage left. William Brocklaw runs in and yells about how his newly refurbished bar just got destroyed on the evening of its grand reopening.
Good
Hey
lord.
man, if it helps you feel any better, I can help you get back at the people who did this.
Who are you?
The name's Henderson, and this is my right-hand man, Rupert.
And you know who did this?
I'm fairly certain I do. Ever hear of the disciples of the Yellow King?
Good
Are
lord.
you saying that this was done by cultists?
Look, I'm not saying it was cultists,
Really?
but it was probably cultists. Come on, your bar might be gone, but it's not the only watering hole in town. You ever hear of a pub called Harry's? You look like you could use a drink.
At Harry's bar, he got filled in on what Henderson knew,
Oh,
while getting a
God.
couple of drinks on the house. I probably would have been there too if I were not slightly pissy about losing 2 characters in as many sessions.
Yeah.
So after a few minutes of back and forth, Will decides he'll get in on it if Henderson will provide some proof as to the whole evil cultist thing.
So, why'd you decide to go after them?
Revenge, mostly.
Really? What happened?
Oh, same bastard who blew up your bar killed 2 of me buddies. And this is after they stole all my f***ing lawn gnomes.
Oh god.
Damn. I tell you what, when we catch the guy, I'll hold him still while you kill him.
Oh, mighty generous of you.
Oh god.
This was at the point where we called it for the evening, and at the start of the next session, Henderson headed up a daring plan to kidnap one of the heads of the cult. I'll tell that one next time, but quick spoiler, I managed to get 3 of my own characters killed in one session.
What?
Yeah.
Oh.
Director's cut.
I think we're gonna stop here. I am experiencing sanity damage here, Fable. Oh, I think Fable's gone again. Well, if you guys want more of this, tell us down below.
I'm a ghost.
Oh my god.
I have 10 ghosts.
And I'll see you all later. I hope you all have a wonderful day. And take care of yourselves. Oh, yeah. Bye.